The human female stood there, completely still, as if gravity itself had decided to take a coffee break and forgotten to inform her legs. I watched from my observation pod, all 4 of my optical sensors focused on this bizarre creature that had somehow managed to infiltrate our most secure facility. Commander Vex muttered through the communication array, his voice carrying that particular tone of annoyance reserved for Tuesdays and unexpected human encounters. "What do we have here?" The human, designation unknown, though our scanners indicated she was approximately 26 Earth rotations old, turned her head with the kind of casual confidence that made my secondary stomach clench with something resembling respect. Or indigestion. Hard to tell with humans. "Oh, you know," she said, her voice carrying an odd lilt that our translators struggled to process. "Just your average Tuesday night break-in. Nothing fancy." She paused, examining her fingernails as if they contained the secrets of faster-than-light travel. "Though I have to say, your security system? Absolutely adorable." Commander Vex's mandibles clicked in what I recognized as barely contained fury. The human had somehow bypassed 17 different defensive protocols, including the maze of infinite confusion that had stumped entire Galactic Council inspection teams. She'd done it while humming what our cultural database identified as an Earth song about precipitation. "Identify yourself, human," Vex demanded, his forearms gesturing dramatically. He always was one for theatrics. The female tilted her head, and I swear by the great nebula's swirling gases, she actually smiled. Not the grimace of fear we'd grown accustomed to, but a genuine expression of amusement that made my scales prickle with unease. "Maya Torres," she said, extending one hand in that peculiar human greeting ritual. "And you must be the welcoming committee. Love what you've done with the place, by the way. Very Doom Fortress meets community college. Really brings out the existential dread in the architecture." I couldn't help myself. A small chirp of what might have been laughter escaped my vocal sac before I could suppress it. Commander Vex shot me a look that could have melted titanium. "You find this amusing, Observer Crix?" he snapped. "Not at all, Commander," I replied, though my tail was still twitching with suppressed mirth. "It's just, she complimented our architecture." Maya Torres, if that was indeed her real designation, looked around the detention chamber with the kind of casual interest usually reserved for art galleries or grocery stores. The chamber itself was designed to break the will of even the most hardened criminals. Walls that shifted between dimensions, floors that occasionally decided to become ceilings, and a subtle psychological pressure that made most species question their life choices within minutes. She seemed to be enjoying herself. "So," she said, settling into what passed for a chair in our reality-bending prison, "are we doing the whole interrogation/intimidation thing now? Because I have to warn you, I've seen some pretty intense episodes of detective shows. I know how this works." Vex's patience was wearing thinner than quantum string theory. "You have violated 16 interstellar treaties, bypassed our most advanced security systems, and infiltrated a Class 9 restricted facility. You will tell us why you're here, or we will extract the information using methods that your species finds unpleasant." Maya's eyebrows rose in what I was beginning to recognize as mock surprise. "Wow, straight to the threats. No foreplay, no casual conversation about the weather. You really know how to make a girl feel special." The human's complete lack of fear was starting to concern me. In my 3 decades of observing various species during interrogation, I'd never witnessed such casual dismissal of mortal danger. Most beings, at least, had the courtesy to tremble slightly. "Perhaps," Vex continued, his voice dropping to what he believed was a menacing whisper, "you don't understand the gravity of your situation. This facility houses weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. The information contained here could reshape the balance of power across 17 sectors." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Maya replied, crossing her legs with the kind of relaxed posture that suggested she was settling in for a long conversation. "Big, scary weapons, galactic implications, the fate of civilizations hanging in the balance. Very dramatic stuff." She paused, seemingly to examine the dimensional shifting occurring in the walls. "But here's the thing that's really bugging me." Vex leaned forward despite himself. "What?" "Your coffee machine is broken." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the quantum fluctuations in the nearby energy cores. Even the reality-warping walls seemed to pause in their endless shifting. "I'm sorry?" Vex managed. "Your coffee machine," Maya repeated patiently, as if explaining basic mathematics to a particularly slow student. "Third corridor, near the auxiliary power junction. It's been dispensing what I can only describe as caffeinated disappointment for at least 6 months. The poor thing is practically crying for maintenance." I found myself leaning forward in my observation pod. This human had not only infiltrated our facility, but had apparently conducted a detailed survey of our amenities. "How do you," Vex began. "Know about your coffee situation?" Maya finished. "Well, when you're sneaking through ventilation systems for 3 hours, you tend to notice these things. Plus, I heard Lieutenant Zara complaining about it to Sergeant Colt near the armory. Something about liquid sadness and questioning her life choices. Really quite poetic, actually. The fact that this human knew the names and locations of our personnel was sending warning signals through every one of my nervous systems. Yet she delivered this information with the casual air of someone discussing the weather. Vex's composure was cracking like an eggshell in a hydraulic press. "You've been observing our personnel?" "Hard not to," Maya shrugged. "You guys aren't exactly subtle. Do you know that Private Wilex has been trying to ask out Communications Officer Terra for 6 weeks now? He stands outside the communications bay every morning at exactly 0800 hours with what I assume is some kind of traditional courtship offering, loses his nerve, and then spends 5 minutes talking to himself in the supply closet. I couldn't help it." Another chirp escaped, followed by what could only be described as a snort. The entire romance had been the talk of the lower levels for weeks. "Observer Crix," Vex barked. "Sorry, Commander, it's just, he does do that." Maya grinned, and I realized with growing alarm that she was somehow managing to turn this interrogation into a casual conversation. More concerning still, it was working. "Look," she said, addressing Vex directly, "I can see you're trying to do the whole intimidating alien commander thing, and honestly, you're not bad at it. The mandible clicking is a nice touch, very dramatic. But can we skip to the part where you threaten to kill me? Because I've got places to be, and frankly, this small talk is getting a bit tedious." Vex's 4 eyes narrowed simultaneously. "You want us to threaten you?" "Well, not want exactly," Maya clarified. "But it's sort of inevitable, isn't it? I mean, according to your standard operating procedures, which, by the way, are posted right there on that wall display that you probably forgot civilians can read, you're supposed to escalate to lethal force options after 47 minutes of unsuccessful interrogation. We're at minute 31, so we've got about 16 minutes of verbal sparring left before the death threats begin." The human had read our operational protocols while hanging upside down in a ventilation shaft during a covert infiltration. I was beginning to understand why the Galactic Council had flagged humans as a species of interest. You seem remarkably calm for someone facing potential execution, I observed, my curiosity overriding protocol. Maya turned toward my observation pod, somehow managing to look directly at me, despite the one-way quantum barrier. "Oh, Observer Crix, right? I heard about you from Lieutenant Zara. She mentioned you make excellent analytical reports, but terrible coffee." "That's accurate," I admitted, wondering how this human had managed to learn more about our facility's personnel in 3 hours than some of our own staff knew after months of service. "The thing about death threats," Maya continued conversationally, "is that they're only effective if the person making them actually intends to follow through. And let's be honest here, Commander Vex, you're not going to kill me." Vex's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. "And why, precisely, would you think that?" "Several reasons," Maya said, holding up one finger. "First, I'm obviously here for a reason, and killing me before you find out what that reason is would be tactically stupid. Second, I've demonstrated capabilities that intrigue you more than they frighten you. And third—" She paused, seemingly for dramatic effect. "You're curious about how I knew about Private Ilex's romantic difficulties." She was right, of course. I could see it in Vex's posture, the way his secondary arms had relaxed, the slight forward lean that indicated engagement rather than aggression. This human had somehow managed to weaponize curiosity. "Very well," Vex said finally. "You want directness? Here's directness. Tell us why you're here, or we will kill you." Maya's smile widened. "There we go. Much better. Though I have to say, your delivery could use some work. Maybe try leaning forward more? And the eye thing, all four at once, is good, but you might want to narrow them sequentially. Creates more dramatic tension." "Are you seriously giving me acting advice during an interrogation?" Vex demanded. "Well, you asked for directness," Maya replied. "And honestly, yes, your intimidation technique needs work. I've seen more menacing behavior from Earth house cats. The human was either completely insane or operating on a level of confidence that bordered on supernatural. I was leaning toward the latter, which worried me considerably." "To answer your question," Maya continued, "I'm here because you have something that belongs to me." "Impossible," Vex stated flatly. "This facility contains only draconian military assets and research materials." "Oh, I know exactly what this facility contains," Maya said, her tone shifting slightly. For the first time since her capture, there was something approaching seriousness in her voice. "Including the human research subject you've been holding in Sublevel 7 for the past 3 months." The temperature in the detention chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Vex's mandibles resumed their clicking, but slower now, more thoughtful. "We have no human research subjects," he said, but I could detect the uncertainty in his voice. "Elena Martinez," Maya said quietly. "Age 23. Biochemist, specializing in xenological adaptation protocols. Captured during the Kepler Station incident and classified as a voluntary research participant." Her fingers made air quotes around the last phrase. "Ring any bells?" I felt my scales shift color involuntarily. Elena Martinez was indeed being held in Sublevel 7, though the details of her capture and detention were classified above my clearance level. Vex was silent for a long moment. "Even if such a person existed," he said carefully, "what possible connection could you have to her?" "She's my sister," Maya said simply. The words hung in the air like a gravitational anomaly, bending everything around them. I found myself reassessing every aspect of the past 37 minutes. This wasn't a random infiltration or a case of human curiosity gone wrong. This was a rescue mission. Your sister, Vex repeated. Half-sister, technically, Maya clarified. Same stubborn streak, different fathers, though we both got the family talent for finding trouble in the most inconvenient places. If this person is your sister, Vex said slowly, why not go through proper diplomatic channels? File a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. Maya's laugh was sharp and entirely without humor. Oh, Commander, you really think I didn't try that first? 3 months of filing forms, attending hearings, providing documentation, and sitting in waiting rooms that smell like disinfectant and broken dreams. You know what the Council told me? I'm sure you're going to inform me, Vex replied dryly. Insufficient evidence of unlawful detention, Maya quoted. No record of forced participation in research programs. Apparently, Elena's signature on some very official-looking documents was all they needed to classify her as a willing volunteer in your little science project. If she signed, Vex began. Under duress, Maya interrupted, her voice carrying the first real edge I'd heard. Elena doesn't speak Draconian. She doesn't understand your legal system. And she certainly wouldn't volunteer for the kind of experiments you're running down there. The human's casual demeanor was finally cracking, revealing something harder underneath. Something that made my survival instincts start sending urgent messages about immediate relocation to somewhere far, far away. And what? Vex asked carefully. Makes you think we would simply release her to you? Maya was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice had returned to its earlier casual tone. But there was something different now, something that made the quantum barriers around my observation pod feel inadequate. Oh, you're not going to release her to me, she said pleasantly. I'm going to take her. The only question is whether you make it easy, or whether I have to get creative. You're threatening us? Vex asked, incredulity clear in his voice. One human against an entire military installation? Not threatening, Maya corrected. Explaining. See, the thing about humans that you might not have picked up in your xenological studies is that we're really, really bad at accepting no for an answer, especially when family's involved. She stood up from the chair, stretching casually as if she'd been sitting through a particularly boring lecture rather than a life-or-death interrogation. So here's how this is going to work, she continued, brushing imaginary dust off her clothes. You're going to escort me to sub-level 7. You're going to release Elena, and we're going to walk out of here together. In return, I won't have to demonstrate why human beings manage to go from discovering fire to splitting atoms in less time than it takes most species to develop decent plumbing. The silence that followed was pregnant with possibilities, none of them particularly comfortable. And if we refuse? Vex asked. Maya's smile returned, bright and cheerful and absolutely terrifying. Well, Commander, she said, you can try. What happened next defied every predictive model in our tactical database. Instead of waiting for Vex's response, Maya simply walked toward the detention chamber's exit. Not ran, not rushed, not even hurried. She walked with the kind of purposeful stride usually reserved for grocery shopping, or casual strolls through parks that don't contain heavily armed alien guards. The door, naturally, was locked, sealed with quantum encryption that would take our best technicians hours to bypass. Maya examined it for approximately 3 seconds before pulling out what appeared to be a standard Earth communication device. Hey, Siri, she said conversationally. Can you connect to local networks and disable security protocol 77 Alpha? A pleasant female voice responded from the device. I'm sorry, Maya, but I can't access military-grade alien security systems." "Right. Forgot you're still running the basic package," Maya muttered. She tapped the device several times, and suddenly it was projecting a holographic interface that made our quantum computers look like stone tablets. "Let me just upgrade you real quick." "Maya Torres!" Vex roared, finally finding his voice. "Step away from that door immediately." "Or what?" Maya asked, without turning around. Her fingers danced across the holographic display with practiced efficiency. "You'll shoot me? In a detention chamber lined with quantum explosives? That seems counterproductive." I felt my secondary heart skip several beats. She was right, of course. The chamber's containment systems made projectile weapons extremely inadvisable. But how did she know about the explosive lining? "How did you—" I started. "Know about your booby traps?" Maya finished, glancing toward my observation pod. "Cricks, buddy, you guys have the architectural subtlety of a supernova. Plus, Lieutenant Zara was complaining about having to recalibrate the quantum charges every week. Something about safety protocols written by paranoid engineers with too much time and not enough sense." The door made a pleasant chiming sound and slid open. "There we go," Maya said cheerfully. "Much better than trying to remember which wire connects to which explosive, don't you think?" Vex's mandibles were clicking so rapidly they sounded like machine gun fire. "Security teams to detention level Alpha immediately. Code red alert status." "Oh, don't bother," Maya called over her shoulder as she stepped into the corridor. "I already rerouted your communication systems. Your security teams are currently receiving orders to conduct mandatory equipment inspections in the supply closets. They'll be busy for at least 20 minutes. She had hijacked our entire communication network. While having a casual conversation about coffee machines and romantic difficulties, I was beginning to understand why the human species had gone from primitive tool use to interstellar travel in what amounted to an evolutionary eye blink. "This is impossible," Vex muttered, following Maya into the corridor. "Security protocol updates require command authorization codes that your IT department hasn't changed in 18 months?" Maya interrupted. "Yeah. Private Wilex mentioned that during one of his supply closet pep talks. Something about administrative oversight and bureaucratic laziness. Really, your information security is charmingly old-fashioned." I activated my mobile observation unit and floated after them, my duty as observer overriding my rapidly escalating survival instincts. This human was systematically dismantling our most secure facility using nothing more than casual conversation and what appeared to be a consumer electronics device. The journey to Sub-Level 7 should have been impossible for an unauthorized person. Biometric scanners, pressure-sensitive floors, automated defense turrets, and at least 6 different types of motion detectors stood between the detention level and the research areas. Maya dealt with each obstacle the same way she'd handled everything else, by casually mentioning conversations she shouldn't have been able to overhear. "Oh, Scanner Station 3 is miscalibrated," she informed the biometric reader, somehow causing it to flash green without providing any biological samples. "Maintenance Tech Bricks has been complaining about it for weeks. Something about readings more random than quantum decay." The pressure floors registered her weight as authorized personnel after she mentioned Sergeant Colt's ongoing issues with the sensitivity settings. The defense turrets politely ignored her presence when she noted that their targeting protocols hadn't been updated since the facility's construction. "How is she doing this?" Vex whispered to me as we followed her through security checkpoints that should have required high-level clearance. "I believe," I replied quietly, "she's using our own personnel against us. Every casual complaint, every frustrated comment, Every minor grievance has given her information about our systems. But that would require perfect recall of dozens of conversations across multiple departments over several hours, Vex protested. Yes, I agreed. It would. We watched Maya casually disable another security checkpoint by referencing Communications Officer Terra's complaints about system lag times. The human's memory wasn't just impressive, it was terrifying. She had apparently cataloged every operational difficulty, every minor malfunction, and every employee complaint during her 3-hour infiltration. You know what I don't understand? Maya said conversationally as we descended toward sub-level 7. Why go through all this trouble to study one biochemist? I mean, Elena's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but she's hardly unique. Earth has thousands of xenological specialists. Your sister's research, Vex said carefully, has implications for cross-species biological compatibility that could revolutionize. Medical treatment protocols. Yes, I know, Maya interrupted. Elena sent me her research notes before the Kepler station incident. Something about adaptive cellular matrices that could allow for universal organ transplantation between species. She stopped walking and turned to face Vex directly. For the first time since her capture, Maya's expression was completely serious. But that's not why you're really holding her, is it, Commander? Vex's silence was answer enough. See, the thing about Elena is that she's not just brilliant, she's ethical, Maya continued. When she realized her research could be weaponized, she destroyed her primary data files and submitted herself for memory modification to prevent forced extraction of the information. My optical sensors focused sharply. Memory modification was an extreme measure, essentially lobotomizing specific knowledge while leaving the rest of the mind intact. It was considered so dangerous that most civilized species had banned it entirely. Which means, Maya said slowly, you've been torturing my sister for 3 months, trying to recover information that she deliberately made inaccessible. Information that could be used to create biological weapons capable of targeting specific species. The research has legitimate medical applications, Vex began. That could accidentally wipe out entire planetary populations if misused, Maya finished. Yeah, Elena thought of that too. It's why she erased everything and volunteered for neural modification rather than let her work fall into the wrong hands. We had reached sub-level 7. The research facility's entrance was protected by the most advanced security systems in draconian military inventory. Quantum locks, biometric verification, neural pattern recognition, and what our engineers proudly called the ultimate barrier. Maya looked at it for about 2 seconds. Oh, this is the fancy one, she said appreciatively. The system that cost analyst Rex said was more expensive than a small moon and twice as temperamental. Let me guess, it breaks down every 3rd Thursday and requires manual reset by someone with administrative privileges. The ultimate barrier made a series of apologetic beeping sounds and opened. Yep, Maya nodded. Classic over-engineering. The more complicated you make something, the more ways it can fail. Inside the research facility, I finally saw Elena Martinez for the first time. She was strapped to some kind of neural interface device, electrodes attached to various points on her skull. Her eyes closed in what might have been sleep or unconsciousness. Maya's casual demeanor evaporated instantly. Elena, she whispered, rushing to her sister's side. Elena, can you hear me? The younger human stirred slightly, her eyes opening to reveal the kind of confusion that came from extended neural manipulation. Maya? Elena's voice was barely audible. How did you... Where are we? Draconian Research Facility, Sublevel 7, Maya replied, her hands already working to disconnect the neural interface. And we're leaving. Right now. The restraints are biometrically locked, Vex informed her. Only authorized personnel can… Oh, you mean like Research Director Quinn, who uses his daughter's hatching date as his password? Maya asked without looking up. The restraints clicked open. Or maybe Chief Scientist Vel, who complained to anyone who would listen that the biometric locks keep failing during shift changes. Elena sat up slowly, her movements unsteady but determined. Maya, the research. I had to destroy it. They've been trying to extract… I know, Maya said gently, supporting her sister as she stood. And you did the right thing. But we need to go before they figure out how to override the security I've been scrambling. You cannot simply walk out of here, Vex stated, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. This facility is surrounded by automated defense systems, patrol ships, and enough firepower to level a city. Maya looked at him with something approaching pity. Commander, she said softly, do you really think I came here without an exit strategy? As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Not security alarms, I realized with growing horror, but evacuation alerts. Attention all personnel, came a voice over the communication system. A voice I recognized as belonging to Chief Safety Officer Grix. Quantum core instability detected in Reactor 7. All personnel proceed to emergency evacuation stations immediately. This is not a drill. Reactor 7, Vex gasped. But that's impossible. The quantum cores are completely stable. Oh, they are, Maya agreed cheerfully, helping Elena toward the exit. But your safety systems don't know that. Funny how a few minor adjustments to sensor readings can trigger automatic evacuation protocols. The facility was emptying around us, personnel rushing past in organized panic, as they followed emergency procedures drilled into them through countless safety exercises. You caused a false evacuation alert, I realized. I prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving, Maya replied. Elena, can you walk on your own? I think so, Elena said, though she kept one hand on her sister's shoulder for support. Maya, how did you even find me? Long story, Maya said. Short version, I spent 3 months learning everything there is to know about draconian military operations, infiltrated their most secure facility, and had a lovely chat with Commander Vex about his personnel management. Techniques. We had reached the main corridor, now filled with evacuating staff members. Maya and Elena simply joined the flow of people heading toward the emergency exits. 2 more faces in the crowd of beings rushing to escape a reactor failure that existed only in the facility's computer systems. This is insane, Vex muttered, following along. You cannot simply walk out of a maximum security facility pretending to be evacuees. Watch us, Maya said pleasantly. And they did. Elena Martinez and Maya Torres walked out of the most secure draconian military research facility in the sector, surrounded by guards and staff members who were too focused on emergency procedures to notice that 2 of the evacuees didn't belong there. At the evacuation assembly point, Maya helped Elena into what appeared to be a standard emergency transport, the kind used to ferry personnel to safety during facility emergencies. Maya, Elena said as the transport lifted off, how did you even get here? Earth is 17 sectors away. Borrowed a ship from some friends, Maya replied. Well, borrowed might be a strong word. Let's say I convinced them to lend it to me after explaining the situation. Through the transport's window, I watched the facility below us growing smaller. My duty as observer required me to document everything, but I found myself struggling to process what I had witnessed. Observer Crix, Vex said quietly, settling beside me in the transport. In your official report, how exactly do you plan to explain what happened here today? I considered the question carefully. How does one explain that a single human female had infiltrated a maximum security facility, rescued a prisoner, and escaped, all while conducting casual conversations about coffee machines and romantic difficulties? I believe, I said finally, I'm going to recommend a complete review of our information security protocols. And, Vex prompted, and I'm going to suggest that any future dealings with humans should involve significantly more caution and considerably better coffee. From the front of the transport, Maya's voice carried back to us. Oh, and Commander Vex, you might want to check on Private Walex. I left him a note with some advice about talking to Communications Officer Terra. Something tells me those supply closet pep talks were just him practicing what he really wanted to say. Elena laughed, a sound of pure relief and affection. Maya, you're impossible. I prefer creatively persistent, Maya replied. Besides, somebody had to come get you. The Galactic Council's customer service is terrible. As our transport reached the edge of the facility's airspace, I saw another ship rising to meet us. Sleek, fast, and definitely not of draconian manufacture. Is that Vex began? My ride, Maya confirmed. Don't worry, they're very professional. Mostly. The docking procedure was smooth and efficient. Within minutes, both human females had transferred to the other vessel, leaving Vex and me alone in our emergency transport with a situation that defied every regulation in our extensive military handbook. Commander, I said, as the human ship accelerated away at a velocity that made our fastest interceptors look like decorative sculptures. What exactly do we tell Command about this incident? Vex was quiet for a long moment, watching the human vessel disappear into the star field. We tell them, he said finally, that we learned something important about human beings today. Which is? That when they say, you can try, they're not making a threat, Vex replied. They're offering you one last chance to reconsider before they demonstrate why their species went from primitive hunter-gatherers to interstellar travelers in less time than it takes most civilizations to discover agriculture. I made a note in my official report. Recommendation: future human encounters should be approached with extreme caution, adequate preparation, and significantly better coffee facilities. Somehow, I suspected it wouldn't be enough.